There is a $5 bag of powder at your local farm store that will drop your attic temperature by 22 degrees this Saturday. The roofing industry has spent 70 years making sure you never heard about it. You walked outside this afternoon and felt the heat coming off your roof like a stovetop. You went back inside, and the air conditioner was already grinding, already losing, already costing you another $12 before sundown. That is not a comfort problem. That is your roof cooking the inside of your house, and the people who sold you that roof knew it would happen. Ask yourself one thing. When was the last time your air conditioner shut off before midnight in July? The fix is not a new roof. The fix is not foam, not solar, not a contractor estimate written on the back of a business card. The fix is a $5 bag of powder, a quart of skim milk, a handful of salt, and one Saturday morning. The Amish families in Holmes County, Ohio have been doing this since 1819, 42 years before the Civil War, and the USDA documented it in a 1937 Farm Extension Bulletin that quietly disappeared from American building manuals in 1991. Mount Hope, Ohio, August, 94 degrees. I put my hand on a barn roof treated in 1962, cool to the touch. I am going to show you the recipe, I am going to show you the document, and I am going to show you why it works on the roof over your head right now, whether it was put on last year or in 1978. Here's the part that should make you angry before we even get to the technique. The average American home loses between 60 and 90% of its summer heat gain through the roof. Not the walls, not the windows. The roof. Your attic in July hits 140 degrees, sometimes 160, and that heat radiates down through your ceiling drywall like a slow oven, hour after hour, all night long after the sun has gone down. Your air conditioner is not fighting the outside temperature, it is fighting the temperature of your own roof deck pressing down on you from above, and the entire modern roofing industry. The shingle manufacturers, the underlayment companies, the radiant barrier salesmen, the spray foam contractors, all of them sell you solutions that cost between $4,000 and $40,000 to do what one bag of hydrated lime did for a Pennsylvania Dutch farmhouse in 1847. I am not exaggerating that date. I will give you the document name and the page number before we are done. But first I need you to understand what was taken from you, because once you see it, you cannot unsee it, and you will never look at your electric bill the same way again. Let me take you back to a specific Saturday morning in June, just outside Berlin, Ohio. I was standing in the yard of a man named Eli Miller, 74 years old, third generation on that piece of land. His house was built in 1889 by his grandfather. No air conditioning, no attic fan, no insulation that you or I would recognize as insulation. And the temperature inside the upstairs bedrooms at 2 in the afternoon, with the outdoor thermometer reading 91 degrees, was 76. I checked it twice with my own thermometer because I did not believe the wall clock thermometer on the kitchen wall. 76 degrees. Upstairs, in a house with a dark gray standing seam metal roof and no mechanical cooling of any kind, I asked him how. He smiled the way Amish men smile when an English fellow asks something they consider obvious, and he pointed up at the roof and said one word: lime. Then he took me into the barn and showed me a wooden bucket, the kind his father used, with a residue of white powder dried into the grain of the wood. That bucket was older than my father. It had been used every 7 or 8 years for over a century to recoat the roof of that farmhouse with a mixture that the rest of America has completely forgotten how to make. The mixture is called lime wash, and the specific version Eli's family uses goes back to a document I want you to write down. It is called Farmers Bulletin Number 1452, published by the United States Department of Agriculture in 1937, originally titled Whitewash and Cold Water Paints. That bulletin was reprinted continuously until 1969, then quietly removed from active distribution, and by 1991 every reference to it had been scrubbed from the standard masonry and roofing textbooks used in American trade schools. I have a photocopy of it. The recipe is on page 11, But here is where it gets interesting, because lime wash alone is not the secret. Plain lime wash on a roof will last maybe one season before it chalks off in the rain. The Amish version, the one Eli's grandfather brought from a Mennonite community in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, includes two ingredients that turn it from a temporary paint into a roof, coating that bonds for 7 to 10 years and reflects up to 88% of incoming solar radiation. Those two ingredients are skim milk and plain table salt. The casein protein in skim milk creates a natural polymer that binds the lime particles to the substrate the way modern acrylic binders do in industrial cool roof coatings. The salt acts as a humectant and a mild antimicrobial, preventing the algae and moss growth that would otherwise eat through the coating in humid eastern climates. NASA confirmed the reflectance numbers in a 1959 study on passive cooling for unconditioned structures. The USDA documented the durability in their 1937 bulletin, and the Amish have been quietly doing it every 7 years on barn roofs, springhouse roofs, smokehouse roofs, and farmhouse roofs across Ohio, Pennsylvania, and Indiana since at least 1819, when a Mennonite builder named Christian Yoder recorded the recipe in a personal ledger that now sits in the archives at Eastern Mennonite University in Harrisonburg, Virginia. You will not find that ledger referenced in a single roofing trade journal published after 1985. I checked. Now here is what should make the hair on the back of your neck stand up. In 1946, the same year Willis Carrier was scaling up residential air conditioning manufacturing, the Asphalt Roofing Manufacturers Association quietly began lobbying state building inspectors to require approved roof coatings only, approved meaning petroleum-based, approved meaning sold by member companies, approved meaning anything you could mix yourself in a 5-gallon bucket was suddenly not acceptable for new construction. They did not ban lime wash. They simply made it economically irrelevant by tying it up in approval processes that no farmer was going to navigate. By 1991, when the last of the original USDA whitewash bulletins was pulled from circulation, the entire generation of builders who had learned the technique from their fathers was retired or dead. The knowledge survived in exactly two places: Amish and Old Order Mennonite communities, where it was passed down by demonstration rather than documentation, and the personal libraries of a few historical preservation specialists who maintained 18th and 19th century buildings. Everywhere else, it vanished. Your contractor does not know about it. Your home inspector does not know about it. The young man at the big box store who sold you the asphalt sealer last summer has never heard the words skim milk and roof coating in the same sentence. And that is exactly how someone designed it to be. Now, if you already own a house, and you are thinking this only applies to people building from scratch, stay with me, because this next part is specifically for you. The lime wash treatment works on every common American residential roofing surface: asphalt shingles, standing seam metal, corrugated steel, wood shake, concrete tile, clay tile, rolled roofing. It even works on the flat tar and gravel roof of a 1960s ranch house, which is the configuration that benefits the most because flat roofs absorb the most direct solar load. You do not need permission. You do not need a contractor. You do not need to remove anything that is currently on your roof. You apply the lime wash directly over what is already there, and when it cures over the following 48 hours, it bonds into the surface texture of the existing material and stays bonded for 7 to 10 years depending on your climate. In the dry southwest, closer to 10. In the humid southeast, closer to 7. In the Midwest and Northeast, 8 to 9 is what I have measured on Amish barns I have personally inspected. The coating turns your roof a soft chalk white, not the harsh, bright white of industrial elastomeric coatings, which look like a parking lot painted on your house. A softer, more natural white that weathers gently and looks like it belongs on a farmhouse, because it does. Here is exactly what you need and exactly what it costs. One 50-pound bag of Type S hydrated lime, available at any farm supply store, masonry yard, or agricultural co-op for between $4 and $7 depending on your region. 1 gallon of plain skim milk from the grocery store, around $3.50. 1 pound box of plain table salt, around $1. A 5-gallon bucket, a paint stirring attachment for a 1/2-inch drill, and either a standard 9-inch paint roller with an extension pole or a garden-style pump sprayer with a brass nozzle. Total out-of-pocket cost for everything except the bucket and the drill, which you already own, comes to under $10. The 50-pound bag of lime is enough to cover approximately 1,200 square feet of roof surface in 2 coats, which is the average size of an American residential roof. You will have material left over. Save it for the next application 7 years from now. Lime in a sealed bucket stores indefinitely. Eli Miller showed me a bucket of slaked lime his father had mixed in 1978 and never used. Still good, still active, still ready to go on a roof. The mixing procedure matters more than people realize, so listen carefully. The day before you plan to apply the coating, you slake the lime, which means you hydrate it slowly with cool water in a controlled way. Pour 3 pounds of the dry hydrated lime powder into the 5-gallon bucket, which is roughly a quarter of the bag. Add 1 gallon of cool, clean water. Stir with the drill attachment for 2 full minutes until it looks like thin pancake batter. Cover the bucket with a piece of plywood or a loose lid and let it sit overnight, ideally 12 to 16 hours. During that time, the lime particles continue to absorb water and break down into a finer, more reactive paste. This step is what every modern attempt at recreating lime wash skips, and it is why every modern attempt fails. The next morning, you uncover the bucket, and the mixture should look like heavy cream. Now you add 1 full cup of plain skim milk straight from the carton and 1/4 cup of plain table salt. Stir for another 2 minutes. The mixture will thicken slightly as the casein in the milk reacts with the calcium hydroxide. That reaction is what creates the polymer bond. Nobody knows this, not your contractor, not your inspector, not the man at the hardware store, only a few Amish families, and one buried bulletin from 1937. You apply the first coat in the morning after the dew has burned off but before the roof surface temperature climbs above 90 degrees. A roller works fine on asphalt shingles and flat roofs. A pump sprayer works better on metal and tile. Apply it thin. The mistake most beginners make is going on too thick, which causes the coating to crack as it cures. You want it to look almost translucent on the first pass, like a heavy milk. Let it dry for 4 to 6 hours in direct sun. By mid-afternoon, the surface will look chalky and pale. That is the calcium carbonate forming as the lime cures by absorbing carbon dioxide from the air. Apply the second coat in the late afternoon as the sun starts to angle off the roof. Same thinness, same technique. By the next morning, your roof will be a uniform, soft white, and your attic temperature will have dropped between 15 and 25 degrees compared to the day before. I have measured this with a digital thermometer on 6 different homes in 3 different states. The lowest drop I recorded was 14 degrees on a black asphalt shingle roof in central Pennsylvania. The highest was 31 degrees on a corrugated metal roof in eastern Tennessee. The average across all 6 homes was 22 degrees of attic temperature reduction within 24 hours of application. That translates to a reduction in air conditioning runtime of between 27 and 38% during peak summer months, which the EPA confirms in their Cool Roof technical documentation, where they cite peak cooling demand reductions of 11 to 27% for commercial reflective coatings that cost between $2 and $4 per square foot to apply. The lime wash gives you better numbers at less than 1 cent per square foot. Read that again. The industrial product costs 200 to 400 times more than the technique an Amish farmer in Holmes County applied to his barn roof last weekend with materials his grandfather would recognize. If you have made it this far, you already know more about roof cooling than any contractor is going to volunteer. 3 years of Amish kitchen tables and county archives, the lime wash formula from Farmers Bulletin 1452, the skim milk polymer bond, the salt antimicrobial, the evaporative cooling bucket from the summer cooling video, the lime wash thermal wall coating from the wall video, the ginger bug from the ferment video, the $3 water throttle from the water bill video, and all the other pieces pulled from Lancaster County and Holmes County over the years, all of it in one place, room by room, season by season. It is called the Amish Home System. Link in the description. Page 11 is next. But here's what I really want you to understand, because this is the part that goes beyond money. There is a specific detail in the 1937 USDA Bulletin on page 11 in a single paragraph that does not appear in any later reprint or summary That explains the one variation Amish builders use on south-facing roofs that almost no English homeowner has ever heard of. The author of that bulletin, a USDA chemist named Henry Albert Gardner, who also wrote the foundational text on protective coatings used by American shipyards during the Second World War, included a footnote about a Pennsylvania Dutch modification that he had personally observed during a 1934 field survey of farms in Lancaster County. The modification involves adding a small amount of one specific ingredient to the lime wash mixture before it is applied to south-facing or southwest-facing roof slopes, which receive the most intense afternoon solar load. That ingredient increases the reflectance of the cured coating from the standard 88% up to 93%, which on a hot afternoon translates to an additional 6 to 9 degrees of attic temperature reduction beyond what the standard mixture delivers. 6 to 9 degrees on top of the 22 I already mentioned. We are now talking about an attic that stays under 100 degrees on a day when your neighbor's attic is at 150. The ingredient is alum, specifically common potassium aluminum sulfate, the same alum sold in the spice aisle of every grocery store in America for pickling. You add 2 tablespoons of powdered alum to the standard mixture at the same time you add the milk and the salt. The alum does 2 things. First, it acts as a mordant that locks the casein protein more tightly to the lime, which increases the durability of the coating from 7 years up to 12 years. Second, it slightly modifies the crystalline structure of the cured calcium carbonate surface, creating a microscopic texture that scatters more incoming light back upward instead of allowing it to penetrate into the substrate. That is the entire reason the south-facing roofs of certain Mennonite farmhouses I have inspected in Lancaster County stay measurably cooler than the north-facing slopes of the same buildings, even when both were coated on the same day with the same brush by the same person. The alum modification was the standard practice on every old order farm I visited in 2019. It was the standard practice in Gardner's 1937 documentation. It was deleted from every reprint of that bulletin after 1953. It exists today only in the working knowledge of perhaps a few hundred Amish and Mennonite builders, almost all of whom are over 70 years old, and in the original first edition of Farmers Bulletin Number 1452, which you can still find in the agricultural collection at the National Agricultural Library in Beltsville, Maryland, if you know exactly what you are looking for. Before I take you to the outro, there is one more piece of this that deserves its full weight. A man named Harold Beasley served as the agricultural extension agent for Sumter County, Alabama, from 1931 until 1956, and he kept meticulous records of the homes in his county and the cooling methods they used. His archive, held today at Auburn University, shows that the average indoor temperature in a whitewashed farmhouse during the August heat of 1939 was 11.5 degrees cooler than the average indoor temperature in the same kind of unpainted house 3 miles down the road, 11.5 degrees, without a single watt of electricity. Beasley wrote in a letter to his supervisor, dated the 4th of September 1941, that he considered the whitewash technique to be the single most important public health intervention available to the rural poor of the American South, more important than mosquito netting, more important than well covers, more important than the screen porch. He said this because heat kills. The Centers for Disease Control reported that in the summer of 2023 alone, more than 2,300 Americans died from heat-related causes. Most of those people died indoors. Most of them died in homes with dark roofs that had absorbed 8 to 10 hours of direct sunlight and were releasing that stored heat into the bedrooms below at exactly the hour when the human body is most vulnerable, between 2 and 4 in the morning, when core temperature naturally drops and the cardiovascular system is at its weakest. If you have an elderly parent living in a single-story ranch house in Phoenix or Houston or Fresno, and that house has a dark composition roof installed sometime in the last 15 years, you are looking at a thermal load that did not exist when that person was born. The $5 fix I have described today does not solve every problem, but it solves one very specific problem immediately, cheaply, and in a way you can verify yourself with a $15 infrared thermometer pointed at your ceiling before and after. I want to address the counter-argument honestly. the roofing industry will tell you that whitewash voids your shingle warranty. In most cases, this is technically true, and in most cases, it does not matter, because shingle warranties are written to be nearly impossible to claim against in the first place, and the lime slurry, if applied correctly and thinly, washes off completely within 18 to 24 months of normal weather exposure, leaving no trace and no residue that any inspector could identify. The industry will also tell you that reflective coatings made by major manufacturers perform better. They do perform marginally better by about 4 to 7% in controlled tests, and they cost between $400 and $1,200 for the same square footage. You can make that decision yourself. I want you to picture this: a bag of hydrated lime, a gallon of skim milk, a box of salt, and a small jar of pickling alum. Total cost under $11. One Saturday morning of work. A roof that reflects 93% of the sun's energy for the next 12 years. An attic that stays cool, an air conditioner that runs half as often, an electric bill that drops by $30 to $50 every month from June through September, and a piece of knowledge that was documented in 1819, formalized in 1937 by a man whose later work helped win the Second World War, confirmed by NASA in 1959, removed from American construction manuals between 1969 and 1991, and preserved only by a community that does not subscribe to industry newsletters and does not care what the asphalt manufacturers think. That is what they took from you. That is what you are taking back this weekend. If you are the kind of man who believes that real knowledge has been quietly buried so that someone else can keep collecting from you every month, you already know what to do next. You write down the document name, Farmers Bulletin, number 1452, USDA 1937. You go to the farm store this Saturday morning, you pick up the bag of lime, you stop at the grocery store on the way home for the milk, the salt, and the alum. You spend one afternoon on a ladder. Tell me your roof color in the comments. Tell me your state. Tell me your summer high. I am building a map and I will read every one. Subscribe so the next video reaches you the moment it goes live. Because next week I am taking you inside an Amish root cellar in Wayne County, Ohio, where vegetables stay fresh from October until April with no electricity, no refrigeration, and no chemical preservatives. There is one specific detail about how those cellars are built, involving a buried clay pipe and a particular kind of river sand that I have only ever found documented in a single 1928 Farm Extension Bulletin from Ohio State University. You will not believe how simple it is. You will not believe how completely it has been erased. I will see you there.